watching television and seeing what was happening in Charlottesville, it broke my heart. It just reminded me of 70-some years ago. It frightens me because I've seen how these things just build and build to something awful. I was only 4 years old when the Netherlands was invaded. If you were 6 years old and older, you had to wear the yellow star with J-O-O-D, which means Jew in English. I didn't know what it meant, and I was very proud of that. This was a picture that was taken in 1942 when we couldn't go to public school anymore, and these are all Jewish teachers who couldn't work either. And this is many years ago. This was a picture with our little sailor outfits that was taken of my sister and I just before we went into hiding. My sister and I were sent to a farming community. My parents did not know these people. They were not told where they lived, nothing. That very first evening, this couple sat me down and they told me that our story was going to be that we were bombed out of our city. There was tremendous fear as a child, not fully understanding, and I prayed every night that I would live one more day. Right after Christmas in 1944, they thought we were discovered, and we were immediately moved to another family in another village. But it was also the hunger winter in the Netherlands. There was no food. Everyone was so hungry, we were eating Dutch bulbs. And people had said, don't eat the tulip bulbs because they're toxic, but no one seemed to die. So we continued. We survived on that. It was 3 years. We were told our parents survived. And I remember that day, we went back to the farm to wait for my parents. They came stood in the doorway, this couple, I didn't know who they were. Everyone was waiting for their relatives to come back from wherever they were, and that's when we started to hear the stories of the concentration camps and all the things that had happened. This picture here is a picture of my family members, immediate family members who perished. My Dutch grandparents, my German grandparents, these are my mother's parents, my father's sister Miep, her husband, and my 3 little cousins, who were basically, were all the same age as my sister and I. 19 trains went from the Netherlands to Sobibor. And everyone in this particular concentration camp did not live out the day. They were immediately gassed. And you can see, here's a whole page, and it tells you who they are and where they died. And as you can see, I just discovered all these people through here are related to my family. Every time I go to Europe, I discover new things. We were at Majdanek, one of the camps, and there's a whole barrack full of shoes. And I assumed shoes that belonged to people who were in that camp. And 2 years ago, one of the guides said these were shoes from other camps, including Sobibor. And that's where my family was murdered. And I just got so upset, and I start to cry when I think about it, because I suddenly realized I could be looking at their shoes. The butterfly. For 7 weeks I've lived in here, penned up inside this ghetto. Only I never saw another butterfly. That butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto. I think it's very important. It was a time in history which millions of people died, and only because of their religion. And it's also the other side of the story is how many people cared and were willing to risk their lives to save Jews and anyone else. And I think that at this time, I think it's so important for people to hear the stories and how people cared. I wouldn't be here today if people didn't care to save my sister and I. I think the greatest gift that was given to me was to be alive, to live. I have 9 grandchildren. So the Nazis did not succeed. Our family continues to grow and blossom.